Have you ever seen a UFO? Come on, be honest. Well, if you have, chances are it was probably this one because it's the most famous UFO sighting in American history. It was big, it was bright, and it left millions of people scratching their heads wondering what the hell just happened. We were talking about the Phoenix lights. But what actually happened that night? Was it an alien spaceship, a secret military test, or something else entirely? Today we're going to answer a query that has endured for more than 2 decades. What were the Phoenix lights? On March 13th, 1997, people across Arizona saw something amazing in the sky. Thousands upon thousands of lights arranged in a V-shape flying silently over the state. It was so big and so bright that it literally lit up people's backyards. Reports came pouring into local news stations. People were shocked, confused, and a little scared. When they turned on their TVs, they didn't find much in the way of answers. 4 hours, the major networks failed to mention the mysterious lights. Even as the story exploded on local news, there was only one problem. This wasn't some never-before-seen UFO. It had been there all along. Well, not exactly. You see, sometimes when your eyes see things, your brain fills in the rest. And that seems to have happened to those witnessing the Phoenix lights. Most people saw a V formation of about 40 lights, but that's not what was really out there. Instead, there were about 60 individual lights that were part of a low-altitude military exercise called Operation Desert Thunder. So why did people see a giant UFO instead of a bunch of separate flares? Well, the human brain is wired to find patterns, even where none exist. Think about it. If you see a small cluster of stars, you'll naturally see them as a group. You won't see them as 47 individual points of light. The same thing happened with the Phoenix lights. People saw a V. Not because that's what it was, but because that's how our brains work. So, case closed, right? Not so fast. While it's true that the military was conducting an exercise that day, it wasn't the kind of exercise that involved launching flares into the sky. In fact, the flares weren't even launched that night at all. They were dropped by cargo planes flying over the Goldwater Air Force Range, an area of southern Arizona the size of Connecticut. It's used by the US military for bombing practice. And every once in a while, they like to spice things up by adding flares to the mix. But that's exactly what happened on March 13th, 1997. There's a slight problem. According to official reports, only 3 C-130s took part in the operation. So where did the other 57 flares come from? Official reports say they didn't come from anywhere. The military maintains that no other flares were released that night, period. So why do tens of thousands of people insist they saw more than a trio of flares? Well, some might have seen shooting stars or maybe even fireworks from a nearby display in Tucson. But the vast majority saw what they saw. And it wasn't just a handful of flares. It was a full-blown UFO. And that brings us to yet another problem. The military knew the public would see the flares, which is why the Air Force put out a statement ahead of time explaining what would happen that night. It warned residents that they might see a massive UFO, but no one paid any attention. No one outside the military ever saw a press release coming. So how could anyone have been prepared for the Phoenix Lights? They couldn't. Which is why many witnesses assumed it was an alien spaceship and not a military drill gone awry. But okay, let's pretend it was. Why did these aliens decide to appear over Phoenix? Well, the truth is, they didn't. Once again, it all comes down to perspective. The lights were actually seen over a large chunk of Arizona, but most of the sightings came from Phoenix simply because it's the biggest city in the state. Just under 4 million people live in the greater Phoenix area. So it makes sense that most of the witnesses came from there. The same thing happened when the alleged UFO passed over Southern California 2 days earlier, on March 11th, despite the fact that it was seen from Los Angeles to San Diego. Officials focused on the San Diego sighting since that's where most of the reports came in. But hold on a second. Why did an alien spaceship need to fly over the different American cities? Well, according to the believers, it didn't. Those 3 letters stand for close encounters of the third kind. But not all close encounters are created equal. There are 5 different levels of alien contact, and levels 1 and 2 are strictly observational. Level 1 involves seeing a UFO, while level 2 involves being contacted by an alien. Levels 3 through 5, on the other hand, involve actual communication. Level 3 is when an alien interacts with humans. Level 4 is when humans interact with aliens. And level 5 is when both groups interact with each other. Since the Phoenix Lights didn't involve any communication, it should probably be classified as a level 1 event per room. And therein lies yet another problem. The entire incident lasted less than 20 minutes and people saw nothing else besides some bright lights in the sky. So, even if it was a UFO, it wasn't necessarily an alien spaceship. After all, unidentified doesn't automatically mean extraterrestrial. It could have been a weather balloon, a secret military craft, or even a plane full of aliens. Hey, it's possible. But wait, there's more. To make matters even more complicated, there have been several other alleged UFO sightings in the area. In April of 1998, a year after the Phoenix Lights, hundreds of people in Tucson saw something strange in the sky. They described it as a large, oval-shaped object hovering above the city. But that's not all. Similar sightings were reported in January and February of 1999, and even in November of 2006. Could they all be related? Maybe. Could they all be extraterrestrial? Almost certainly not. B. C. The military conducts its exercises in the skies over Arizona every year, and it's bound to confuse the locals every once in a while. But why are they training over Arizona? Well, it's all about realism. The military doesn't want to spend time and money training over perfect sky. They want to train over real skies. And there's no better place to find those than in Arizona. That's why the state is home to more than a dozen military bases, including 4 major ones, in addition to the obvious reasons. Like plenty of open space and good weather, Arizona also offers something else that's very rare: complete darkness. Much of the state is so far away from major cities that it looks like this at night. So it's not hard to see why the military likes to train there. But while it may be great for the military, It's not so fun for civilians who mistake their drills for a real alien invasion. But that brings us back to the original question. What were the Phoenix Lights? Well, the simple answer is flares. The slightly less simple answer is flares launched during a low-altitude military training exercise. And the super complicated answer is flares launched during a low-altitude military training exercise that were misinterpreted by tens of thousands of civilians who mistook them for a real UFO. Regardless of what they were, the Phoenix Lights remain a pop culture touchstone for UFO believers. Prosh, you can buy t-shirts, bumper stickers, jewelry, and even beer, cozies celebrating the alleged alien invasion. You can even watch a low-budget sci-fi film called The Phoenix Incident, which claims to use actual footage from the night in question. Okay, now you know everything there is to know about the Phoenix Light. Thanks for watching.